Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
So this seminar is on Srila Prabhupada books. And why is this seminar? Because first, to inspire devotees to read Srila Prabhupada books, which in fact we have seen over the years back in India and in Western world. Devotees are not reading Prabhupada books as much as they should. So the purpose of this seminar is to show you that Srila Prabhupada books have everything, even more than everything what we think. So I've selected some quotations from Srila Prabhupada, and I want to impress on you that Srila Prabhupada books are very deep, and it contains all knowledge what you need. In fact, whatever knowledge is there in all of the sampradayas, in any other book, it is there in Srila Prabhupada books, but in English. So you might sometimes overlook it, or might think Prabhupada books are okay, that's easy, and many devotees, they like to read other books. That's not bad to read other books. We should read other books, but Prabhupada books are basis and the core of our devotion. So Prabhupada said in Science of Self-Realization, I shall never die, I shall live forever in my books. So this is letter to 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗀, 22nd July 1972, and Srila Prabhupada himself is writing there a letter. So let us concentrate on training our devotees very thoroughly in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. And now the important point is from our books and from tapes. Now Prabhupada mentions both, from books and from tapes. Tapes means room conversations, lectures, and other recordings. It's not just books. Prabhupada books, room conversations, letters, and all other things, we have to read all of them to understand the mood and the intent of Srila Prabhupada. So every book, every letter of Srila Prabhupada have a different flavor to it. Like suppose Srila Prabhupada books, they help us to understand philosophy. All books, all letters, all conversations have everything, but there's a special flavor. Prabhupada big books, they help us to understand philosophy systematically. Prabhupada's small books, Prabhupada's talking about philosophy, but Prabhupada is giving us practical realizations there because Prabhupada speaks them and then they get transliterated. Prabhupada letters inspire us to serve Krishna, to preach, to do book distribution, they give inspiration. Prabhupada's room conversations helps us to learn management and other practical tips which he's talking with devotees. And Prabhupada's morning walks have the flavor of defeating rascal scientists and materialistic people, Mayavadis. So that's why we have to, Prabhupada says, we have to thoroughly train devotees. Now, Prabhupada uses these kind of words which are very practical and down to earth. You have to train devotees. Prabhupada didn't say you should read books. It's not just a matter of reading. It's a matter of training. To read them thoroughly, that's the idea. From our books, from tapes, by discussing always in so many ways, instruct them in right proposition. This is 1972. In 1975, at the end of the movement, also Prabhupada recognized devotees should read my books, what they are not doing. Prabhupada recognized at that time and he said to GBC, you should make sure that devotees should read my books. Otherwise, we miss the whole mood and mission of Srila Prabhupada. We will tend to deviate somewhere else, as it has happened in other sampradayas. It might happen to us also. And Prabhupada said, I live in my books. So we have to know who is our Vartaman Acharya. He is our Vartaman Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. We have to know what he wants, what he thinks, how he wants us to think, and how he wants us to go ahead and also help others to go ahead in spiritual life. So this is a letter to 𝗪𝗪𝗃. Now, that means Prabhupada is inspiring us to read his books. Prabhupada books has everything. Now I'm going to show you how Prabhupada books are summation of all sampradayas. Whatever you need, it is there. Sometimes you might have overlooked some things which are very deep and very important to our spiritual lives. But sometimes Prabhupada mentions one line and he never repeats that. In all his books, all his letters, all his conversations. And that line is so important to our spiritual life. In fact, it's a summary of a sampradaya and we tend to overlook it. If you don't read that, you miss an important concept in devotional life. That is why Prabhupada is requesting you read all my books, tapes, letters and everything. For example, Prabhupada books have summation of all sampradayas. So you don't need to read. You can read other sampradaya books. That's good. But for that you have to learn Sanskrit, first of all. Or maybe if you want to read Divya Prabandha in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, you might have to learn old Tamil, something like that. So, or if you want to read Vallabh Sampradaya, you might have to learn Gujarati. Most of the books are in Gujarati. Purushottam Acharya, Giridhar Lal, and so many things. If you want to read Nimbark Sampradaya books, you will have to learn Rajasthani. How will you do all these things? Not required. Prabhupada did our homework. Prabhupada books have summation of all sampradayas. You can read Prabhupada books and you can get the same essence and the same teachings what those sampradayas have to offer to us, even more than that. So, for example, this is Vallabhacharya. I don't know whether you recognize by photograph. Vallabhacharya, Gujarat. Srila Prabhupada writes in Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 16, chapter 26, verse and purport. Srila Prabhupada gives this statement, which is just in this purport, and this is a summation of entire Vallabh Sampradaya. Entire Vallabh Sampradaya is summarized into one statement, if you understand this, if you understand and apply in your life. Prabhupada writes, the Lord, in fact you note the words of Prabhupada, they're so realized and so important. The Lord feels grateful to his devotees for such unsophisticated and unconditional service and tries to reciprocate it by rendering service, although the devotee has no such desire in his heart. Now this is Vallabh Sampradaya. Vallabh Sampradaya is Pushti Marg, if you know, the path of grace. The whole focus is on mercy of Lord and reciprocation of Lord and his devotees. There is no meaning of mercy if there is no devotee and no Lord, and there is no reciprocation. If you go to Vallabh Sampradaya and if they ask you what is the summary of our Sampradaya, quote this statement from Prabhupada and they will understand. You have read this. We have read their books, even if you have not read their books. They will understand that. Prabhupada writes, the Lord feels grateful. And you see the words of Prabhupada, unsophisticated and unconditional service. I never heard this word, unsophisticated. If you read Sanskrit commentaries on devotion, you don't find such a word, unsophisticated. Or so in Sanskrit you might call it as ajatil or something like that. Prabhupada writes unsophisticated, unconditional we understand. Prabhupada adds the word unsophisticated. Unsophisticated service, generally Prabhupada says unalloyed, unconditional. No, like that. Here Prabhupada uses a different word, unsophisticated. That means the intention of a devotee is clear. It's not duplicitous, it's not complex. Intention is clear, to satisfy him. And Krishna feels grateful. Krishna's nature is not that when you serve him, he will say, oh good, you served me. No, he doesn't think like that. He is the greatest of greatest and he is the humblest of humble. So he feels grateful that you have done something to me. In fact, in Nectar of Devotion, Srila Prabhupada writes, when Krishna was sitting and peacocks were dancing for him, and peacocks, they wanted to offer something to Krishna, so they shed their peacock feather while dancing on the floor. And what Krishna did? Krishna just didn't say thank you, as in America you say thank you. It's not just thank you. It's not just thank you. Krishna took that peacock feather and put it on his head. That's why we have peacock feather, this lecture. So Krishna has a peacock feather. That peacock feather signifies that Krishna accepts, Krishna feels grateful to even an insignificant service what a devotee offers. He just doesn't simply accept it, but he feels that yes, this person has put me in debt by serving him. And he tries to reciprocate it by rendering service. We ask mercy from Krishna, but Krishna doesn't think I'm giving mercy. Krishna thinks I'm serving the devotees. It's just a different way of thinking from his perspective. He's devoid of all faults. 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, fault of right. This is Vallabh Sampradaya. Full Vallabh Sampradaya. This is who? Ramanuja. You know Ramanuja? This is just one statement of Prabhupada in letter 1976. You don't find this statement anywhere. And this statement is the summation of Sri Sampradaya. Service is reward of service. Sri Sampradaya is based on service. There are names of devotees. Tondrapadi. Kulashekar, he wanted to become the staircase of the temple so that devotees can step on his head. Sri Sampradaya focuses on service, especially Vaishnav Seva, devotees service. And what is the reward of service? Service, that's all. You can serve Krishna for millions of lives, and then Krishna comes and okay, Krishna. So Krishna says, I want to reward you for your service of millions of lifetimes. What's this? And what Krishna gives you? Krishna says, okay, you have served me for millions of lifetimes, now it's time to reward. And the reward is, go down in kitchen and serve khichdi to devotees. That might happen. If you go in spiritual world, after attaining love of God, what do? You serve. That's all. This is a very important concept. Service is reward of service. We are looking for service. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Krishna Prem Pumartho Bhan. Love of God is the goal of life. In fact, love of God is the need of life. Pum Artha, the need, that word need is there. But why do we want love? To serve Krishna. Ultimately, everything comes down to service. This is Sri Sampradaya. In one sentence, Prabhupada summarizes. If you go to Sri Rangam, if you go to 𝗪𝗂𝗪, if you go to Mysore, 𝗪𝗂𝗪, if you go to Ahobalam, all the Sri Vaishnav centers, and if any GR, they are called GRs, they are saint. If you ask them, if they ask you what is the summation of Sri Sampradaya, you quote this statement and they will praise you. This is a very good understanding. This is Madhvacharya, and I got this quoting from a lecture on Srimad Bhagavatam. We should all hear all lectures of Srimad Bhagavatam. Anybody heard lectures of Srimad Bhagavatam? Lectures of Prabhupada, all lectures here? All of them? All of them? Okay. Yeah, you should hear all of them. In fact, that's very important. Lectures of... In fact, Prabhupada lectures are transcribed also in folio. So we should hear. Prabhupada speaks this statement in a lecture on 1974, December 20, 3rd canto, 6th chapter, 28th verse, Srimad Bhagavatam. And this statement is exactly what Madhvacharya's philosophy is there. Just one statement. If you go to Madhva Sampradaya and if you say this statement, they'll understand. You know their philosophy. Now, you see this photograph? Madhvacharya has 2 fingers. You see this? 2 fingers. You can see from behind, all of you. 2 fingers. This 2 fingers is not to make you understand that soul and super soul are different. Generally people think that's Madhva's philosophy, dualism. There is soul and super soul. But Madhva said no, that's common sense. I don't need to argue for that point. Soul and God can never be equal. And people used to come to argue soul and God are one. You know what he used to do? For Mayavadis, he had a stone kept in the corner. He used to say, you lift that stone. If you can lift that stone, then I can argue that you are something near to God. If you can't lift that stone, then get laddu and go. That's all. You can't even lift a stone. How can you be God? So these 2 fingers signify that soul is dependent on super soul, on the will of God. That's what this statement says. This statement says even more than that. This statement says three things. What Madhva Sampradaya summarizes. The first thing is Prabhupada says, as Purusha is the enjoyer, we try to become independent enjoyer of this material world. So as God is supreme enjoyer, we have the same tendency and we want to enjoy. You see the point? So we come in direct, confluence, direct face to face with God. Okay, you want to enjoy, I want to enjoy. So that is independent enjoyer. The word in Madhva Sampradaya, independent and dependent. So, but baffled one after another, baffled and at last finally baffled, he wants to become Supreme Purusha, I am God. This is Mayavad. Madhva was a born enemy of Mayavad, if you read his works. That's all. What Madhva does, if you read his books, he takes Shankara books and he takes every line and just writes opposite to that. That's what Madhva books are there. He finished Shankara, Mayavad. This Prabhupada gives a statement, beautiful statement. Prabhupada says, once we try to become independent enjoyer, the highest limit of independent enjoying or independent enjoyer is Mayavad, to become God. And that's what Madhva was arguing for. He was trying to defeat Mayavad. Prabhupada books are defeating Mayavad left and right. In fact, Prabhupada disciples couldn't understand initially when Prabhupada started the movement why Prabhupada is speaking against Mayavad. Why? What's the point? You're not God and this and that. But actually, one of the Prabhupada disciples, he was in Vyas Puja, Prabhupada appearance day, he was saying that I was first confused, why people why Prabhupada is stressing so much on Mayavad, cutting it. But then they said, we went to India and then we understood after many years that this is the disease. Modern science is modern Mayavad, by the way. Science is modern Mayavad. Science is another form of Mayavad, doesn't vanish. It takes another different forms. So Madhvacharya, enjoying propensity is another form of Mayavad. That's what this statement Prabhupada is trying to understand. We all have a tinge of, not a tinge, but maybe a big chunk of Mayavad in us because we want to enjoy this material world. That's all. That is Mayavad. We want to be God. So that is Madhva's philosophy in one line. Everything what Madhva wants to say in concise. So you see, this is Bhaktivedanta Thakur. Prabhupada gives Bhaktivedanta Thakur's philosophy in one line. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, 9th chapter, 51st verse in purport. Prabhupada writes, tears will fill his eyes. He will be unable to chant the Maha Mantra distinctly, and his heart will throb in ecstasy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that one should not imitate this, but a devotee should long for the day to come when such symptoms of trance will automatically appear in his body. This is what is Bhaktivedanta Thakur's all works. Bhaktivedanta Thakur, entire life he focused mostly on holy names, inspiring people to chant holy names. That was his mission. And he wrote a book, Sharanagati, and in the last song of Sharanagati, he writes a beautiful poem, and there he writes, Mora ang 𝗙𝗂𝗋 𝗪𝗪. He says, my legs shiver, my throat chokes. And he says, this is the ecstasy of trance, of chanting the holy names. When holy names enter my ears, 𝗙𝗪 𝗪𝗪. Then 𝗪𝗪 𝗪𝗪𝗀. It's a beautiful song. And when it enters my ears, it showers ecstasy in my heart. This is holy name. And he often talked about perfection of chanting of holy name. But see what Srila Prabhupada is saying? Prabhupada is saying devotee should long for the day when such symptoms arise. That means devotee should desire for the day when we chant and there are tears in eyes. Prabhupada said in Nectar of Devotion, Prabhupada said there's a small art of chanting. We should know how to cry while chanting. But it doesn't come easily. It's not false tears. It is true tears. Even one single true tear can please Krishna. And even millions of false tears can actually wipe off all your knowledge. So, you should desire for the day while chanting, these things should happen to you. But, Prabhupada says, to have a desire is not enough, you should also deserve it. It's not I simply desire, you have to work for it, no? So this is what Prabhupada is trying to help us understand here, which Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, you should chant offenselessly. And he has written books on Harinam Chintamani, Bhajan Rahasya, so many books on holy name. He's tried to understand, tries to give us a scientific method how to chant perfectly and offenselessly. And Prabhupada puts all his teachings in one sentence. It's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So I'm telling you, Prabhupada's books have everything. But you have to read everything in Prabhupada books to understand everything. Otherwise, half knowledge becomes a little dangerous. Prabhupada letters and conversations might be contextual sometimes, because Prabhupada is writing to particular disciples. But the BBT published book on letters. It has published book on letters and conversations. And introduction BBT writes, although the letters are very contextual and specific to a person, but still there are many general instructions in those letters. And many general instructions in conversations and also morning walks. We all know that. And we can learn a lot about how Prabhupada thinks and what Prabhupada wants from us. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Prabhupada summarizes all the teachings of Bhakti Siddhanta in one line in his books. And this book, by the way, is Elevation to Krishna Consciousness. If you have read that, this is a small book which we distribute on streets. We distribute on streets, you can imagine, Elevation to Krishna Consciousness. Anybody who has read Elevation to Krishna Consciousness, you can easily understand this small book is not a small book. In fact, it's more big than a big book. It has everything. And Prabhupada summarizes all the teachings. This 𝗪𝗲𝗪 magazine, Bhakti Siddhanta used to publish magazine, like we publish in ISKCON, Back to Godhead. Prabhupada started. Bhakti Siddhanta had a 𝗪𝗲𝗪 magazine in Bengali, and this was published in many languages, approximately 8 languages, Odia and other languages. And if you read all those magazines, you will get this essence, what Prabhupada gives. Prabhupada says, even the cultivation of spiritual realization for one's own self-interest is unlawful and destructive. Mind the words of Prabhupada. When we read Prabhupada books, read every word carefully. Prabhupada doesn't use any word like we use. He gives a thought. He is Acharya. He is liberated soul. When he uses a word, there is a meaning to it. There is an intent to it. More than meaning, there is an intent. We can't dismiss what to say of books and paragraphs and sentences. We can't even dismiss the words of Prabhupada, even a full stop. There's a meaning. Prabhupada stops and starts next. Prabhupada says, cultivation of spiritual realization for one's own self-interest is unlawful and destructive. The point is, all activities must be directed to satisfaction of Krishna and his service. It's a beautiful statement. Bhakti Siddhanta always emphasized on service. But what kind of service? Service which is devoid of self-interest. Prabhupada says in one of his lectures. Prabhupada says, even in Krishna consciousness, one should not desire self-satisfaction. So that's very important, because when we start serving Krishna, sometimes we start enjoying Krishna. That's the problem. Or in the garb of devotion, we start enjoying what Krishna thinks. Krishna provides us things to serve him, but we start enjoying that. Even to expect happiness, satisfaction and peace in devotion, that's also sense gratification. We don't expect that. That's Mahaprabhu. 𝗙liche𝗹𝗹𝗀𝗀 Krishna, even if you put me in miseries, I am a servant. We don't expect that. That is also sense enjoyment. That's what Prabhupada says here. Cultivation of spiritual realization for one's own self-interest is unlawful and destructive. 2 words. Unlawful means which is devoid of religion, dharma. Religion, the central core of religion is selflessness. One philosopher said, I don't know how to define religion and a religion. It's a big topic. It's complex. There's so many books written on dharma. Manu Samhita is a main book. Then you have Ashvalayana Smriti, Bodhayana Smriti, Vishwamitra Smriti. There's so many books. There are around 32 Smritis on dharma by all the rishis. What do you do with that? It's very complex. People have tried to define religion, because religion is mostly dealing with morality, with personal conduct, achar, social conduct, vyavhar, and prayashchit. All these things. And circumstances change, people change, so laws have to change accordingly. Application has to change of the same law sometimes. That is why Vyasadeva wrote Mahabharata. He said, come on, these Kali-yuga people who are Shudras, like, who have very less intelligence, they can't understand dharma. They can't understand application of dharma. So let me write Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, he tried to put all those situations which we will face in this life, and even more than that, so that we know how to act in those situations. That's why Mahabharata is written. So the Prabhupada says it is unlawful, even in devotion, if you try to find your own self-satisfaction, you will, what to say out of devotion, you are out of religion even. Irreligious activity, sinful, that becomes sinful. And destructive, because we are here to please Krishna, but in the end we will displease him. So it is said, when you are serving a king, be careful, because there are many benefits, but when there will be harm, you will die, because you are a king. Even small mistake will be very grave. So when you are dealing with fire, be careful. There are many benefits. You can cook, you can do this and that and that and that. But if you are not careful, it can burn you to death. That's Krishna. Krishna is so merciful. It's very nice. We serve him. We get so many benefits, like infinite benefits. But if you are not careful, if you do offenses, then Krishna can also become angry. That his anger is also mercy, by the way. But he can also punish. I'll quote a beautiful quote. He can punish. Don't think he can't punish. But he punishes for a benefit. But the idea is, it can be destructive. If you start enjoying in the garb of devotion, we are planning to go to hell, even though we are performing devotion. Offenses, Krishna will tolerate to a certain extent. He will guide you, he will give hints, don't do it, don't do that. In spite of that, if we don't improve, well, if you do, this is the biggest offense we can do in devotion. That's a 10th offense. Shrutva api nam mahatmayas 𝗪 priti rahito adhama. Even after hearing so much, maintaining material attachments. So even after hearing so much, still we are not convinced. Sense gratification is hateful. We should hate enjoying our senses. That's the perfection of life. We should hate enjoying our senses, and we should love and be addicted and intoxicated to serve Krishna. That's gopis, by the way. If you want to follow them, that's a whole process. This is Bhakti Siddhanta, by the way. In one line, Srila Prabhupada says. You see how Prabhupada books is summarizing all the sampradayas, all the knowledge. But you have to read carefully Prabhupada books and read everything. His books, small books, big books, lectures and letters. Okay, Srila Prabhupada books have practical insight. Not only summation of all sampradayas, practical insight. This is a letter to Nayan Abhiram, Bombay, 4th April 1971. Prabhupada says, you can make a good propaganda, then everyone will become attracted to Krishna consciousness. That is our mission. There is no acharya in history who has used this word propaganda. No. It's not there in Bible, it's not there in Quran, it's not there in all sampradayas, none of the acharyas. Shankaracharya used once, he said dimdimi, he used this Sanskrit word dimdimi, he said propagate this knowledge, but that means propagation. It's almost same, but Prabhupada uses in a different sense, propaganda. Prabhupada was in Delhi, and I think it was Tejas Prabhu, and there was elections. And Prabhupada said to him, Prabhupada said, okay, there are elections, So you put banners all around the city. And you write, any politician who is doing illicit sex, intoxication, gambling and meat eating, don't give vote to him. Now how can you do that, Lest you will fall into danger. You can be killed. Of course he didn't do, Tejas Prabhu didn't do. But you see Prabhupada's ideas of propaganda. He wanted to have propaganda. It is not just preaching. Preaching is something different. Propaganda is something different. It's more than preaching. And Prabhupada says that is our mission. Then everyone will become attracted to Krishna consciousness. This is Prabhupada's practical insight of propaganda. Prabhupada uses this word again and again in his letters. This is a letter. Mostly in letters Prabhupada uses this word. We have to do propaganda. Do big pandal programs, this and that, go to this country, do this. So preaching is okay. I am preaching to you all. Some people come in a room, you preach. But propaganda is something different. You go to a park, do kirtanam, and so many people will know. Or you go to some university and shout, Krishna is supreme, maybe something like that, maybe in India. So like that, that's propaganda. Leaflets and this, banners and this and that. You have to have creativity, that's the idea. That's Prabhupada's insight in this word of propaganda. Prabhupada wanted devotees to be creative and think how to spread this knowledge all around the world. I was sharing with Bhaktivedanta Prabhu that there is a new lecture of Prabhupada. Just now they found a latest lecture and they cleaned it up and some few new lectures. And one of the lecture Prabhupada is saying in 1976, 75 or something in the end, Prabhupada is saying we try to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world and we try to stop Kali Yuga. But Prabhupada said we failed. Prabhupada said that. We failed to stop the tide of Kali Yuga in our mission. But you do propaganda of Krishna consciousness and save good souls. Because Kali Yuga is strong, You can't stop it. But you can save good souls. That is why propaganda is important. What these people are doing, these scientists and these advertising companies, it's simple propaganda, that's all. So to fight them, we have to do propaganda. It's poison against poison, thorn with a thorn. Propaganda with propaganda. That's the idea. This is beautiful insight of Prabhupada. In fact, only by reading Prabhupada books, today Madhva Sampradaya is preaching. When I was there 20 years back, reading, I was there in Udupi. So these Swamijis, they had no idea of preaching. They were not preaching. But now this Puthige Math and Advar Math in Madhva Sampradaya Udupi, they read Prabhupada books and they are preaching. They are inspired to preach. And they are not allowed to cross Indian border. But one of the Swami, he crossed Indian border. And he said, so I think it is Pejawar Math or some, he said in his lecture, in his speech, he said that what Madhva or we couldn't do in 800 years, Prabhupada did in 10 years. He actually acknowledged Prabhupada's achievement because Prabhupada is saying such a practical things, propaganda. It clicked to them. Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, the present Acharya, you can say as Acharya, the main person who is preaching is Chinnajiyar. He's preaching. And he gives all credit to Prabhupada books. He says, yes, these books I have read and I was inspired to preach and do propaganda. So you see how Prabhupada books are very important. If you read all Acharya's books, and if you don't read Prabhupada books, what will happen is you will gain knowledge, of course, but I can't guarantee you will gain understanding. That's another thing. But that I can guarantee, that reading those books and not reading Prabhupada books, what will happen is you will not be inspired to preach. That's not going to happen. That's why people read previous Acharya's books. That's not bad, but then they sit in Vrindavan and they're not inspired to preach. But Prabhupada books will not allow you to sit at one place. You can't sit. That's Prabhupada books, practical insight. This is another insight of Srila Prabhupada. It's went down, the quotation. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam and purport. First canto, 4th chapter, 1st verse. You can't see, but it's from 1st canto purport, Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada writes, this is a very important purport. Personal realization does not mean that one should, out of vanity, attempt to show one's learning by trying to surpass previous acharyas. Okay, this is fine. He must have full confidence in previous acharyas. At the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for particular circumstance in a suitable manner. The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meaning should be screwed out of it, yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for understanding the audience. This is called realization. No acharya has defined realization in these terms. Madhvacharya defines self-realization as 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗋. He uses that term. He says realization is when you can see through the eyes of soul. Ramanuja defines realization as sakshatkar, when you can see reality face to face. You see philosophical terms? Prabhupada doesn't define like that. Prabhupada says realization is when you are able to make Krishna consciousness interesting and understandable to the audience. Why? Because if you don't realize subject matter, then you can't make others realize subject matter. No? If you don't understand, how can you make others people understand? If you don't relish the subject matter, how can you help others to relish that subject matter? You don't know yourself. A realized person understands the subject matter and relishes. In this statement, Prabhupada is speaking full philosophy. 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀, Bhagavad Gita says. Understanding and relishment. That's what Krishna says. 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀. You read Gita. 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀. 𝗙𝗲𝗪 means understanding. By understanding subject matter, you get satisfaction. 𝗪𝗲𝗪 means relish. After you understand that, then you start relishing it, because it goes right into your soul, not into your intelligence and mind and logic and rationality, right into your soul. That's relishment. And Prabhupada's, this is a beautiful practical definition of realization. This is what we are doing here. This is what we are doing and we are supposed to do. We are supposed to make Krishna consciousness interesting for people, but not just interesting, but understandable. Keeping the original purpose of the text. Because sometimes if you want to make Krishna consciousness interesting, you might lose the purpose of the text. You might be doing something else. And that's something is happening all around us. People try to make Krishna consciousness interesting, but they're doing something else. But Prabhupada says no. That is realization. Prabhupada always said, old wine in new bottle. Content is same, presentation is different. That's all. But you don't change the content. So beautiful understanding of realization. That is, Prabhupada gives you practical. Prabhupada said, my books are famous because I give practical realizations. That's Prabhupada, the Acharya of this age. It is very important to read Prabhupada books. This is from Prabhupada books. And this is one line of Prabhupada which can change your life. And which has whole philosophy, if you really understand. 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, that is realization. Simple. Realization means ruchi, jnana vijnana triptatma. Bhagavatam says, you have understanding. Vijnana means you relish that. It's same. But Prabhupada uses the words. Prabhupada translates the same Sanskrit in a very practical translation. Very practical translation. Jnana vijnana triptatma, you can say person is satisfied by knowledge and maybe vijnana, realization. Knowledge and practical application. Prabhupada says no. Jnana is understanding, vijnana is interesting, relishment, priti, ruchi. That's what all the terms are used. That is Prabhupada books. Prabhupada books have everything. Prabhupada books have unstoppable enthusiasm. This you will not get from any other book. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 9th canto, 5th chapter, 27th verse. Can you see behind? Can you see? Okay, I'll read for you. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, purport, 9th canto. The devotee is never satisfied thinking, this is a limit of my devotional service. The more he engages in service of Lord, the more service he wants to give. This is Srila Prabhupada. Devotee is never satisfied. This is a limit of my devotional service. Prabhupada, in spite of doing so much, we can't even match his service. We can't even dream to match his service. Still he was unsatisfied. That is a mark of a devotee. Mark of a devotee is not satisfaction. Mark of devotion is unsatisfaction. Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the day a devotee is satisfied, his devotion is over. Finished. Satisfied from the perspective of material life. But devotional life, unsatisfaction. In fact, his unsatisfaction increases day by day. Prabhupada says this is unstoppable enthusiasm. Prabhupada says in this one of the lecture, Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 7th chapter, 24th verse, in Vrindavan, October 21st, 1976. Almost the last. Prabhupada says, you see, I'll read this. In material conditioned life, your aim is how to satisfy your senses. And Krishna consciousness means you have to work in the same spirit and same vigor, but you have to satisfy Krishna. Prabhupada says, just like these materialists, they are working so hard to satisfy their senses for money, for this and for that. With the same spirit we have to work here. Generally it doesn't happen like that. That is spiritual life, not to become lazy fellow. Prabhupada says not to become lazy fellow. Krishna consciousness means, as Krishna instructs, you must be very, very busy 24 hours. Bhaktivedanta said, we should be busy 25 hours out of 24 hours. That's his guru. More strong than Prabhupada. That is Krishna consciousness. Not to become a lazy fellow, eat and sleep. No. We are not here in temple to eat and sleep. That you will get it. Food you will get from anywhere. Sleep you can sleep on road. No problem. This temple is a facility to help us propagate Krishna consciousness. It's a platform. That's all. To jump. It's not a platform to stick here. That's not the idea. Prabhupada never wanted that. Bhaktivedanta said, you are mathiya. You know mathiya? The mat. Matsya mathiya. Don't sit here. This is the spirit of Prabhupada. Unstoppable enthusiasm. Prabhupada said, don't sit. You should be very, very, very busy. Prabhupada says 24 hours. This is Prabhupada's lecture. So you have to hear lectures of Prabhupada. Prabhupada, we all know Prabhupada used to translate his books throughout night. Sometimes Prabhupada used to call his personal servants in the night, midnight, 2 o'clock, and he used to say, why you are sleeping? Come on, The servant said, but Prabhupada, I am not a pure devotee. Prabhupada said, why you are not a pure devotee? What is he going to say? He said, Prabhupada, because I am not Prabhupada, I am not you. Prabhupada said, why you are not me? He said, Prabhupada, well, I am tired, I get headaches and this and that. Prabhupada says, I am also doing, I don't get headaches. In fact, Prabhupada used to get headaches. But he could tolerate that. So, then he said something. Prabhupada, he said, if I don't sleep, I'll get this, I'll get this. Prabhupada said, okay, I'll bless you, you'll get nothing now. Wake up and serve Krishna. That's Prabhupada's spirit. Of course, we can't do that like him. It's very difficult. Your body will not allow. But at least that spirit we should understand. And try to cultivate according to our own capacity. You see the point? A devotee hates when he goes to sleep. He hates. Prabhupada said, you're wasting time. 6 hours, finished. 6 hours, you not only forget Krishna, you forget yourself. That's the worst thing which can happen to us. We forget ourselves. So, but anyway, you have to sleep, you have to eat, everything. But that spirit is important. And this spirit is given by Prabhupada. Unstoppable enthusiasm. That's what Prabhupada says in his books. Prabhupada books have everything. Prabhupada books have fire of preaching. Now this is from a morning walk, 1973, December 12, LA. Prabhupada says, preaching is always difficult. If you find preaching easy, this means you're not preaching. Something else is going on. You're not speaking the truth. You're speaking something. Preaching is not easy. To convince people of truth, it's not easy. Param Satyam, it is said in scripture, 𝗙𝗲𝗪𝗶𝗃. To establish truth in the world where people are untruthful, deceitful, they don't like religion, they don't like truth. It's difficult to do that. Prabhupada says preaching is always difficult. You cannot take it easy. Preaching must be a fight. You say fighting is the easy thing? Prabhupada says in morning thing. You see how Prabhupada writes his books? He compares preaching as fighting. Prabhupada is less of a saint and more of a warrior. Let's say like that. That if you understand Prabhupada, who was he? If we view Prabhupada as a saint, we miss the personality of Prabhupada. We miss him. He was a warrior. And he said, I want Brahmanas with spirit of Kshatriyas. Fighters for Krishna. Prabhupada always said, challenge scientists, challenge this, challenge that. So, that's fire of preaching. If you read Prabhupada books, you understand, you have to preach. This is one quotation from letter 1st July 1970. Prabhupada writes to one of his disciples, who is pretty old. Prabhupada says, please accept my humble obeisances. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your kind letter dated 24th June 1970. And I am very glad to learn that your last responsibilities in family affairs are now discharged. Your 2 daughters are now married. That means he is to be pretty old. Now in this ripe old age, what you should do? You should go to Vrindavan? No. You should devote yourself to spreading Krishna conscious movement all over the world. You see Prabhupada. Prabhupada is different kind of enthusiasm. He was expecting a letter. Prabhupada will say, now in this ripe old age, go to Vrindavan, sit and do your bhajan. I said, now go all around the world and preach Krishna consciousness. That's Prabhupada books. That is why we have to read his books. There is fire of preaching in Prabhupada books. Prabhupada books also have benevolent warnings, by the way. Not just instructions, but warnings. And this quotation is very important from a lecture. It is from a lecture, by the way, not a letter. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 13th chapter, 15th verse, Geneva, June 4th, 1974. And I said Krishna can also punish. Prabhupada is saying that 12 men are authorized to preach Krishna consciousness. Mahajanas. We have to follow. Mahajano ena gata sapanta. Therefore, we have created these GBCs. GBCs? Who manage ISKCON movement, Prabhupada made. So they should be very responsible men. Otherwise, they will be punished. Prabhupada says about GBC. That's a big thing. They will be punished. They will be punished to become a Shudra. It's a very heavy statement, you can understand. Prabhupada is speaking in a lecture. He's not writing a letter. Although Yamraj is a GBC, Prabhupada says Yamraj is a GBC, but he had made a little mistake. And he was punished to become a Shudra. Yamraj became Vidur, no? He became Vidur. So those who are GBC, they should be very, very careful to administer business of ISKCON, otherwise they will be punished. As the post is very great, similarly the punishment is also very great. It's a beautiful lecture. Prabhupada gives benevolent warnings, not to new devotees, but even to the highest authority, GBCs. Everybody has to be careful not to make mistakes. And the more higher you are, the more harder you fall. We have seen history of ISKCON. And we know. So, Prabhupada says, be careful. The more you advance, the more safer you are, at the same time, the more prone you are to the attack of illusion. Maya doesn't care for new devotees. That's okay. They are ordinary devotees. They are already in illusion. But when you try to escape the clutches of Maya, she'll become strong. She'll become strong. Can you just sit here? There's a recording going on. Yeah, thank you. So, that's how Maya works. Maya will keep on harassing you relentlessly. This is the word used in Bible. Relentlessly. Till your last breath, she'll not leave you. She'll keep on working to make you fall down. And the more stronger you become, the more expert she'll become. The more advanced you are, the more tactics she will apply. She is intelligent. She has seen devotees like us. She is eternal, no? She has much more experience than all of us. We can spend 100 years in devotion, but she can just come and finish us all. So, and who can save us? Prabhupada books. Prabhupada books can save us. We have to read his books. Prabhupada gives warnings to GBCs. Who are we? Of course, that time it was different. GBCs were pretty new that time. So, but anyway, the point is, we have to be careful. Prabhupada gives benevolent warnings. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, 25th chapter, 278 verse, purport, Prabhupada says, all devotees connected with Krishna Consciousness movement must read all the books that have been translated. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and I told tapes also, transcribed tapes, either hear or read. Otherwise, after some time, they will simply eat, sleep, and fall down from their position. Thus, they will miss the opportunity to attain eternal blissful life of transcendental pleasure. Please read Prabhupada books. How many of you have read Bhagavad Gita entirely? Of course. Isn't it? No, not full Bhagavad Gita. Full Srimad Bhagavatam? Word to word, chapter to chapter? Okay. Full Chaitanya Charitamrita? Okay. A few of them. Chaitanya Charitamrita is not a book which most of the devotees have read. Okay. And all lectures, all conversations, all letters. We have, Prabhupada says, it's Prabhupada's standing order. We cannot add, we cannot delete any order. We can't do that. We have to fulfill. Otherwise, it becomes Guru Ravagya after some time. After you spend some time in devotion, it starts amounting to Guru Ravagya, disobeying the orders of spiritual master. And Prabhupada wants, you must read. This is a warning from Prabhupada. This is from purport in books. This is not lectures and letters which people can argue. Okay, lectures and letters are contextual and this and that and that. This is books. If you have any statement in a book, that's a law. We all understand. If you want to argue letters and lectures that way. But this is a book. Prabhupada says in his books. This means Prabhupada noted in his movement that this is happening. Prabhupada often writes in his purports what is happening. And this Chaitanya Madhya Leela. So he noted that in his movement people are not reading books, people are... See this, lecture Srimad Bhagavatam. 2nd Canto, 9th chapter, 3rd verse, Melbourne, Australia, April 5th, 1972. Prabhupada noted in his movement, of all these books, we have got so many books. Simply if we make arrangement for selling and not for understanding, then it will be simply be materialistic. Both things must go on. Prabhupada noted, devotees are distributing my books, but they are not reading. People who are reading, they are not distributing. People who are distributing, they are not reading. People who are reading, but if you read Prabhupada books, you will be forced to distribute. You will distribute because Prabhupada books are all about that. Prabhupada says, if you simply distribute books but don't understand them, it is a materialistic activity. It's a very heavy statement. It is not spiritual activity. Prabhupada says, it's materialistic. It will give you some kind of pious benefits. But if you don't know what you are doing, what's the point? So Prabhupada says both things must go on. Read my books, distribute my books. If you read Prabhupada's books, you will distribute his books automatically. Because you want to share knowledge, isn't it? But if you distribute his books and don't read his books, then there is a problem. And Prabhupada warns us. You see, Prabhupada is giving us benevolent warnings. Prabhupada is giving us rules and regulations, some checks, and helping us to remain on the path of pure devotion, not go here and there. So when we do devotion, we need some checks and balances. And Prabhupada books provides us all these things. And that is why you see Prabhupada books have practical insight, they have enthusiasm, they have a summation of all sampradayas, they have benevolent warnings. What else do you want in devotional life? And that is why Prabhupada said, everything is in my books. This letter to Mukunda, Hong Kong, 1st February 1974. Prabhupada says, I have given you all guidance and hints. Prabhupada says all guidance and hints. Now this is important. Prabhupada, sometimes he said, I have given you the plan, you fill the details. Prabhupada has given everything. All guidance and hints, and it is described all in all my books. Now it is up to you. Now the game is in your court. Please keep our principles firmly, and everything will come out successful. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. I finished here. Any questions and any suggestions? That's Prabhupada books, yeah.
You mentioned several times in Prabhupada, many times.
Yeah, just actually, let's have a mic, otherwise.
You mentioned several times in Prabhupada, several times. that sense gratification is something that devotees should not have as a goal, and something that should be avoided.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, when there's prasadam service,
sense gratification is You see the point? I understand your point. When prasadam, we tend to forget everything. But the idea is, you see, this is a big question. When we eat gulab jamun, it is tasty. Of course it's tasty. If you say it's not tasty, you have to go to a doctor, some problem with taste buds. If you see something beautiful, it's beautiful. If you see a beautiful girl or a beautiful object, it is beautiful. If you say it's not beautiful, then you have to consult a psychiatrist. There's some problem. So Krishna says this is reality. It's not illusion. There is taste. There is beauty. But the idea is sense gratification means to see a beautiful thing and then you start relish. Okay, it's beautiful and it's for me. That's the idea. So the gulab jamun is tasty and this taste is for me. That's sense gratification. To experience taste is not wrong. That's tasty. Now the idea is when we eat gulab jamun, it's tasty. Yeah, it's tasty. But what devotee does? Devotee offers this taste back to Krishna in form of service. That's what he does. And that is not sense gratification. If we taste, it's nice, it's tasty, and then we sleep and don't do any service. That's sense gratification. But if we say, Krishna has provided such nice, tasty things in his creation to me, I'll repay him. I'll do double service now. So you repay that taste in form of service to Krishna, and then you're not taking for yourself, you're taking to give him back. So then it's not sense gratification. So you see the idea there? That's how it works. Yeah, Mataji.
Can you bring up that slide which was
Speak in the mic,
there was a slide which comes from elevation to Krishna consciousness?
Yeah, it was there, elevation to Krishna consciousness. Here, this one? Bhakti Shanta?
Yeah. So this one, even the cultivation of spiritual realization for one's own self-interest is unlawful and destructive. When we are actually on the path, I understand that siddhis come and then using them for one's personal benefit. There are many episodes, many instances that.
I mean to say,
Ramayana or Bhagavad Gita or Mahabharata, maybe, or whatever.
For most of us, siddhis will not come first of all, so that's forget it. Oh my God, about that.
So yes. So when we say cultivation of spiritual realization for one's own self-interest, ultimately it's for self-interest.
That what?
Ultimately it's for self-interest.
No, it's not. Ultimately it's not.
What is the difference? Like today and the day, when we say ultimately, when the final thing, what is the difference practically?
Practically is, see what Bhakti Shanta is trying to help us understand, Prabhupada, that even in devotional life, if we seek peace and happiness, what we do, and satisfaction, that is also sense gratification. That's self-interest. We are not here to get happiness, we are here to give happiness. That's the idea. That's what Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna, if by giving me miseries, you become happy, that miseries are my ultimate happiness. That is love. Now you see, the language of love is very different. You can't understand by logic. A mother serves a child for what? For what do you serve your child?
For emotional satisfaction.
For nothing. Even if the child doesn't give you emotional satisfaction, still you will help your child. And you will say, okay, my dear, and child calls you, Mama, you are nonsense, I don't want to talk to you. What you will tell your child? You will tell, Beta, wherever you are, remain happy. That's my blessing for you. You don't want anything. Why? Because of love. So love...
At least we are looking for love. Right? At least we are looking for love.
We are looking for love, we are looking for service. We are looking for love also to serve. Because love helps us to serve. If love didn't help us to serve, we'll not love him. That's all. It's all service.
It's pretty difficult for me to understand. But
It's
okay, but on the path, what would keep us going in that case? Suppose I'm chanting. One is offensive chanting and that, I understand that part. But let's And it's like, okay, if one is chanting and one is not finding satisfaction, what will keep them going?
What will keep us going? With the thought that Krishna becomes happy when we chant His name. This thought. That's all. This thought will keep us going. Bas, nothing more than that. That's all. Prabhupada and Krishna will become happy. Bas. This thought. Even if we are rotting around this material world, there's so many problems, and if Krishna tells us, I am happy, okay, we keep on going like that. That's any thought besides this is illusion. That's all. And that is love. That is language of love. And that, of course, initially doesn't come. Initially everybody seeks some self-interest. No? We are all here, for this comes gradually. To become fully selfless, it's not easy, but at least we should know the goal. Gopis are like that. So this is our goal. We have to approach that goal, slowly work on this platform, and we'll reach that. But if we even don't know the goal, then how is it going to happen? But this statement is important also to help us save from falling down in devotional life. Because you will understand, okay, when you are doing something and when you are eating prasad and you're starting enjoying that, you'll be careful. No, I should not. Because I have to serve Him. I'm not here to enjoy His property. You see, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he was super strict, by the way. Prabhupada says, if my Guru was there, now you all would not be there. That's what he said. One devotee, he was sitting on a chair. On a chair, he was sitting like that. On a sofa. Sofa? He was just sitting on the back, relaxing. Bhaktivedanta said, you are doing, he was too much. He said, you are doing illicit sex. He was blown away. He said, come on. I'm just sitting like, he said, because this is Mother Nature, Prakriti, and you are enjoying Prakriti. So that is illicit sex. How do you understand that? Prabhupada never said that. Prabhupada was a little lenient on all those things. But the idea was that don't try to find comforts in this material world. Don't do that. Even if we are in temple, we are in Krishna's property. We are here to give Him happiness, Him comfort. We are not here. We are here to sacrifice. That's the idea. We are here to give, not to take. We are here to sacrifice, not to enjoy. We are here to do austerities. And not like materialistic people finding some kind of bliss. No, that will automatically come. Bliss and happiness are side effects of devotion. They are side effects. That's the power of devotion. If you make happiness and bliss and satisfaction as aim, you are trying to get side effects of devotion. What's the point? You lose the main thing. They are side effects, they will come, no problem. But we want the main thing. We want Krishna. That we get by love. So slowly by practice, our mind becomes focused and we have vivek, discrimination. What is enjoyment, what is service? It slowly comes. That sense, it is a sense. It is an art. It is not just intellectual endeavor. And then you can advance nicely. Krishna will inspire. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. So that's how it goes. And for gopis, when you become perfect, when you're ready to go to spiritual world, then you don't want anything. There is no self-interest. You continue Krishna consciousness only for Krishna. Yes, not for yourself. That's all. That's pure devotion.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, one question. You stressed quite a bit on reading books.
Yeah, that's what the seminar was.
This 𝗙liche first verse clearly states that chanting and devotional service is the light of knowledge.
Yeah.
So, doesn't chanting and devotional service and everything else that you stated takes care of automatically? Doesn't the wisdom and knowledge come from within?
No.
I mean, I don't deny reading books. Yes, read the books within the reason. But not to the point of sacrificing chanting, devotional service, and other spiritual activities.
Well,
because the knowledge comes from within, right?
No, it doesn't come from within initially. There are 3 levels of knowledge, Prabhupada says in one of his lecture to this answer. Pratyaksh, Paroksh and Aparoksh. And that means, Prabhupada explains, first knowledge comes from Paroksh, from scriptures and from devotees. From within now, knowledge doesn't come. From within, evil comes. Lust comes, envy comes, if we are genuine to ourselves. That comes from, at least from me. No knowledge. Where there is lust, there is no knowledge. Where there is envy, there is no knowledge. Forget it. From within, there is darkness. I close my eyes, I see darkness. I don't know what you all see. You see light? Nothing. It's all garbage. For now. But when we chant, our heart becomes pure, isn't it? And when it becomes pure, when all this garbage is over, then I can say, then we can say knowledge comes from within. That's okay. But even at that time, you need books to confirm that knowledge, whether that is correct or not. Because knowledge needs cognition. Knowledge needs validity. You get a knowledge, you get the information, okay, you get a realization. But how do you know it's correct or not? You get confused, no? Illusion. And many people are there in ISKCON, Gaudiya Math also, they say, okay, I have realized this, you should chant like this and like that. There were so many upper sampradayas, Nitaya Gaur, Radhe Shyam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, big people, they said, this is what I have knowledge from my soul, and they were completely wrong. So, we need books initially, till the time our heart is not pure, till the time there is no knowledge from within, till the time there are anarthas and garbage, we need books to continue chanting. Otherwise, we will not be inspired even to chant, no? We need conviction, we need logic, we need understanding so that we keep on chanting. It becomes boring after some time. So we need books in the stage of practice to help us get rid of doubts and also faithlessness, confusions and anarthas, unwanted things. And at the stage of perfection, still we need books to confirm our realizations from the parampara. You can't leave books, it's impossible. Get the point? That's the importance. And Prabhupada in one of his lectures, 2 lectures, and even one of his letters, Prabhupada says, hearing is more important than chanting. Prabhupada said that. Shravanam and Kirtanam. Mahaprabhu's movement is not Kirtanam. Mahaprabhu's movement is Sankirtanam. And Bhaktisiddhanta defines Sankirtanam as Sang means association of devotees. Association of devotees means transfer of knowledge. Otherwise, what's the meaning of association? We are not here to eat and stay together. Transfer of knowledge means books. So Sankirtanam, Shravan, what is first? Shravanam. All Acharyas says hearing is more important than chanting in conditional state of life for us. Liberated stage, you can keep on chanting, no problem. In our stage, hearing is more important. Prabhupada, Baldev Vidyabhushan, Bhaktisiddhanta, everybody says that. So we have to hear. Now, of course, when we hear, we'll automatically chant. That's what we are hearing, no? Anybody who is hearing with true sincerity, he can't leave chanting because that's what he is hearing. Otherwise, he is not hearing the true message.
So, group chanting is more important than even chanting?
No.
Right?
Why? No. Sankirtanam doesn't mean group chanting.
Yeah, everybody is together.
No. Sankirtanam means, Sang means you hear and chant. In association of devotees, you get knowledge and chant. Sankirtanam means that. It's not really group chanting. You can chant alone also. Prabhupada used to chant alone. He was not chanting in groups. Bhaktisiddhanta was not chanting in groups. You can chant if you want. That's not bad. But that's not the intent of this. Sankirtanam also means when you do Kirtanam, keep your mind, intelligence, soul and heart together. Sang. That's sang. Not with group chanting. If you want to do group chanting, do. And keep this group together. Mind, heart, intelligence and your tongue in one direction. That's real Sankirtanam. So that's what we have to do. That's all.
The smaranam is very important, isn't it?
Smaranam will come automatically from Kirtanam. Kirtana prabhave smarana hove se kale nirjana bhajana sambhav. We don't remember Krishna artificially. We hear and chant and then there is spontaneous remembrance automatically when time comes. Krishna will make himself remember. We are not here to remember him and try to capture him by our mind. No. He will enter our heart when he thinks we are worth it. Now we have to chant and hear and serve him, and slowly when he thinks we are fit, he'll enter our heart, we'll start remembering him. That's how it happens.
It's not supposed to be 24/7, right?
Yeah, through chanting. And spontaneous remembrance. That's how it goes. Okay, so if that's it, thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna,